Welcome to the Wilson Wealth Show, a thought provoking show about building wealth in the new economy. Each week, members of the Wilson Wealth team and their guests will discuss how to navigate the world of personal finance, stocks, real estate, and entrepreneurship to help you build wealth in the new economy. And now, here is your host, Ciera McCosh.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Wilson Wealth Show. Today on the Women and Money segment, we're going to be talking about relationships and success. We're going to dip into healthy relationships and being successful as a woman, toxic relationships and power imbalances, and the mental workload. Today, I have Miss Ablavi here with me. How are you doing today, Miss Ablavi?
Doing well. How are you, Ciera?
I'm doing great, as always. Happy to hear from you. So before we started recording, Ablavi actually brought up a really cool point about relationships in general, and I would just love if you reiterated that for me.
Sure. I was just saying that, I heard Michelle Obama say that, when you look at your relationship, you have to look at it from the totality of the relationship. In certain seasons, one person might give more or do more. In another season, it might be the other person. So you have to look at it from a cumulative perspective and not just from a short-term perspective. It's definitely a marathon and not a sprint.
Yeah, and I love that because, I tend to focus on small things where I'll just be like, okay, today nothing got done. I'm feeling like not appreciated. I had to take on most of the work today. But then when you look at the totality of the relationship, it's like, oh, well, my partner took on most of the work, last week. Or, I've been doing a lot of this lately, but my partner did a lot of this a few months ago. Like, it's just one of those things where you absolutely should look at the whole of your relationship and not focus on it day by day.
Absolutely. Definitely. And people are different, right? A lot of times opposites attract. You have certain strengths and weaknesses that your partner might not have. Like I was saying, 100% of the time, my husband is going to do the yard work.
Yes.
Whereas when it comes to cooking, that's not his thing. He's trying to get into that, but that's really not his thing. So, certain things, it's just like this particular person in the relationship is going to do it or is going to be better at it. And at the same time, I think it's healthy to be in a relationship to where when you need help, you your hand, request the help, and actually get the help. And then though, you also have to not criticize the person for not doing it the way you would do it per se. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that I personally, I have a hard time with because I'm definitely type A. And I am like, get things done, get things done, get things done. And, I have my own definition of cooking. I have my own definition of cleaning, of like doing certain things. And I do have to stop, take a breath, and remind myself that not everybody is going to do things like I do them, and that I should appreciate the help, like any help that I get. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. No,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, and it's one of those things you kind of have to learn because, I would like to say that we're seeing like a shift in society where we are expecting more of our partners as women, which is great. I think that that's a wonderful thing. But it is kind of a process, and I think that we should be patient. Because I know that I have been patient with my partner when, he really wants to learn how to do something, wants to learn how to do it right, but it's still like a process. Like you said with cooking, my boyfriend has been trying to cook a lot more. And he makes a big old mess in the kitchen when he does. And I'm just the person where I'm very efficient, and I'm cleaning as I'm cooking, and I kind of just have to sit back and be like, you know what, it's his own process, I'm just going to let him do it. I appreciate that he's cooking for me. This is wonderful, this is so sweet, and I should just be patient. And I think patience is definitely a virtue in a relationship in general, for sure.
Exactly. And I think that in order to cultivate patience, you need challenges, right?
Absolutely.
So it's just par for the course. There are going to be times where You just have to sort through things and, determine what's going to work best for your household. For some households, it's a situation of the husband can stay at home and the wife goes out and works.
Mm-hmm.
And then for other households, that's like completely would not work. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? So you have to, we can't do the whole comparison thing, even though I think all of us do at some point, and we have to like catch ourselves, because what may work for your friend may not necessarily work for you, and that is okay. You
Oh
got to figure
yeah.
out your rhythm.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And comparisons are the absolute death of relationships. Like,
Absolutely.
absolutely, because I have found myself in the past comparing my relationship to another one, and then I get upset even though I'm perfectly happy in my own relationship. And it's something that, hopefully you kind of grow out of, and you like learn that, your relationship does have its own rhythm, and you're happy with the way that it is when you don't compare. you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Because what works for them is not going to work for you. And they're also different people, different personalities, different challenges in their life. They're not you. There's no reason to compare.
Right. Definitely.
If you have a healthy relationship, then there's no reason to compare. you know?
Right. Definitely. I think that the problem is where we lose sight is that we look at other people's relationship in the era of social media, and
Mm-hmm.
and people post their highlight reel, right? It's not common, I'll say, for people to post when they're having a bad day.
Yes,
You
that's
know,
true.
so when you always see the positives in everyone else's life,
Mm-hmm.
you have a tendency to feel like, well, dang, what's wrong with mine? You
No,
know,
oh, yeah.
you don't see the fight though. You don't see the argument and stuff like that. And you start
Mm-hmm.
to second guess. I live by the belief that nobody's relationship is perfect. I don't care what it looks like. I like to call marriage, in my case, because I'm married, I like to call marriage a beautiful challenge. So,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because you see all these beautiful pictures on social media of wonderful couples, and I know personally, me and my boyfriend, we're just not one to really take pictures. We just never do. And I see that, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I wish we did that. But you don't see what happened right before that picture. You know, I've seen plenty of my friends with their boyfriends, and their boyfriends are so annoyed to take a picture with them, and the picture comes out beautiful and it looks great on social media, but you didn't see the bickering that happened right beforehand. No relationship is perfect, no matter what people say, no matter what you see on social media. Everything has its own unique challenges. And it's really just about being patient with your partner and loving them for who they are, and also challenging each other to be better, for sure.
exactly. Definitely agreed.
Now, that is kind of everything that we had to say about healthy relationships and being successful. None of that really applies if you have a toxic relationship, or there's like a pretty big power imbalance in your household, which does happen. With toxic relationships, there are certain things that are obviously toxic to other people that may not seem toxic to you in the moment. I know I personally have been in toxic relationships where, I was gaslit, which just means, you kind of, they flip the problem back onto you, and then you get a little bit confused. And, there are a lot of toxic traits that a partner could have, and it might not actually be a toxic relationship. It's all very complicated, you know? Is
Definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely. Mhm,
yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, I like to, I believe that, it's like, it's a bad situation to be in a bad situation and not know it. You know what I
Yes.
mean? So I think like always doing like these self checks and evaluations is really, really important, and just being honest with yourself, the person that you see in the mirror. I think a good self check is, if you have a child, is this what you would want your child to emulate? Or if you don't have a child yet, um, thinking about, if you did have a child, would you want your child to be in this situation? And if your answer is no, then there's some things that needs to be adjusted.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's a really good rule of thumb. I like that. I like that a lot because, I've actually heard of that somewhere where, when you're looking for a partner to, like, say, get married, have children with, one that I saw that was really interesting was like, if you were to have a son that ended up just like their father, would you be happy about that?
Right.
And I was like, oh, that's a good way to think about it. That's a good way to kind of push back your feelings and look at the bare bones and say, is this a good person that does good things?
Right, right. And at the same time, though, recognizing that nobody is perfect. Everybody's going to be flawed in
Mm-hmm.
some way,
Mm-hmm.
but you would like to be in a position with an individual where the good out.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And, talking about power imbalances, Ablavi, you brought up a really good point before we started recording.
Remind me. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're totally fine. We were just talking about power imbalances often have to do with money in
Oh yeah, yeah.
relationships.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, now we're living in a society that has shifted to where in a lot of households, the woman brings home more than her partner or her spouse.
Hmm.
And for some people, that can be a major challenge. And, in general, in life, I just believe that whoever has the money has the power.
Hmm.
So that's a slippery slope to go down and to navigate your way through. And it definitely takes some adjustments and some humbling, particularly if you're the guy in the situation and that kind of thing.
Hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, unfortunately, there's still a pretty big stigma when it comes to men and making money. We're still kind of locked in those nuclear family rules that really just don't mesh with society anymore.
Right.
We're in an era where a two income household is standard,
Right.
and not just standard but necessary. If you want to thrive in life and have a family, I mean, both people really need to be working, with just the way things are now. That's just how it
Definitely.
is.
Definitely.
So we are seeing more women who are making more than men, and we are seeing men who, they're good husbands, good fathers, and they're okay with it, but there is still like a stigma, and sometimes they do tend to get a little bit insecure about it, or society has a problem with it, which just, it sucks, to put it
Right.
in layman's terms. It's not great, but it kind of is what it is. And I have seen a shift, and especially the younger generation. I think that maybe the younger generations will be the ones to kind of get rid of this, because we are seeing, more men who are more okay with it, and also the society is kind of growing more okay with it, if that
Right.
makes sense.
Right. Right. Yeah, definitely. So you're saying that in your generation, it's not that big of a deal to
Hmm.
guys anymore if their partner or spouse makes more than they do?
Yeah, I mean, there's still like plenty of individuals who might have a problem with it, but I will say, like, overall, the my generation and the generation under me, I'm a millennial, are starting to become more okay with it. I mean, I think maybe it's purely out of necessity,
Okay.
because it is kind of like a necessary thing, and with women being more common in the workplace, it's bound to happen.
Sure. Sure. Interesting. Well, good. 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 That's awesome.
I know. And the last thing that we wanted to touch on is the mental workload, which is something I actually kind of learned about recently that I didn't realize was so relevant in my own life. But basically, the mental workload is something that usually is put on a woman in a household, where she is constantly thinking about things that need to be done. Okay, we need to go grocery shopping. I need to clean the kitchen. I need to do the laundry. The trash needs to be taken out. This needs to happen. And you kind of find yourself as a woman in a position where you're the manager and your spouse is kind of like the underling, where you're like, okay, well, this needs to be done. I'm going to go ahead and delegate this to my husband, my boyfriend, whatever. And, you know, they don't really have to think in this situation. This is not, This is not everybody's situation, but I have found that this is pretty common where, the husband boyfriend really doesn't have to think about anything else. They just kind of have to do the task that was given to them, like, okay, yeah, I'll totally do that, love you. And they don't really have to think about anything else. And a common phrase in this is, well, why didn't you ask for help? When the problem is, I don't want to have to ask for help. I just want you to also be thinking about the things that need to be done in the household. And this is called the mental workload, where it's just a constant, spinning of tasks in a woman's head where I'm like, all right, I need to do this, I need to do that, this needs to get done. Oh, can you please do this one thing? And that's really all they have to think about. Does that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense. And I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I think it just goes back to how men and women are raised.
Mm-hmm.
There's a saying that says women raise their daughters, but they love their sons.
Mm.
And I think that for some reason, our societies of such where that's just the norm. Like men are conditioned to just not necessarily, when it comes to like the business of running the home, that's usually something that falls on the woman.
Mm-hmm.
Even if she is the one who is making more money, it's just usually that's something that falls on the woman, um,
Mm-hmm.
or what have you, unless it's a situation of maybe the guy is staying at home. I just think that if you take a sample of American households, that's just how it is.
It is. Yeah, it's true. Like I was looking at like a few statistics, and it's like about 75% of the time on average, the woman is kind of caring for the household, whether or not she's working. And this does create what's called the mental workload. And it's something that's kind of never ending, and it can be anxiety inducing. I know I've experienced this in myself. I've seen it in my own mom, seen it in my grandmother. It is something that's just very common among women. And I'm hoping that with future generations and how things are growing and changing, the mental workload can be more shared. A shared mental workload is what
Yeah.
we're aiming for. Um, but it's also one of those things where, because it's something that I do feel is taught at a young age and kind of learned by the way that we raise our sons and our daughters, it's something that we should also have patience for, if that makes
Absolutely.
sense. Yeah, just kind of, it's something that should be put out there like, oh, hey, this is a thing that exists. Maybe we can do something to alleviate it. But it's not something that we should necessarily be really like angry about, because it's something that, you know, wasn't put in place by your partner.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, behaviors are learned, right? So
Yeah.
then they need time to be unlearned.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why it's so important to speak up and have those conversations with your partner, telling them how you feel
Yeah.
about the fact that, you feel like everything is on you. And
Hmm.
then hopefully in time you start to see your partner adjust and it become more collaborative.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just important to have these conversations and keep open communication so that, there's no resentment that grows. You just absolutely have to speak your mind and be honest about your feelings, and also not feel guilty about asking your partner to do things. You
Right,
know,
right. No, definitely. And but then when you ask your partner to do it, if they don't do it the same way you do it, you have to be okay with that too.
yeah, it's one of those things where you can, maybe talk to them about it, just be like, hey, it, say maybe it's like loading the dishwasher, something simple like that. If you load it this way, we'll be able to fit a lot more dishes and not have to run it as much. You can have conversations like
Right,
that,
right.
and maybe they'll adjust according to that. Like, oh, yeah, that makes a lot more sense. But again, there has to be patience and love and communication in these conversations for sure.
Yeah, no, definitely. Absolutely.
All right. Well, I think that we touched all of our points on relationships and success. Thank you so much for joining me today, Ablavi. I really appreciate your input.
Of course. It's always a pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Well, thank you everybody for listening in. This has been the Wilson Wells Show on Women and Money. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to today's podcast. Please visit us at www.wilsonwealth.com, on Instagram and Twitter at Wilson Wealth, and on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Wilson Wealth for more information about us and the company. We'll see you guys next week on the Wilson Wealth Show.
Thank you for listening to the Wilson Wealth Show, a thought-provoking show about building wealth in the new economy. Each week, members of the Wilson Wealth team and their guests will discuss how to navigate the world of stocks, real estate, and entrepreneurship to help you build wealth in the new economy. Please join us next time on the Wilson Wealth Show.
I can't let it go. I had a dream about us. We were in the same place at the same time. Can you perceive the way I lie to myself at night to keep you off of my mind? I had a dream I wasn't bound by things that keep me tethered down. At least I'm feeling something, but I'm not here when you're not around. My fears, you disappear, but only for a time. Your alibi, my weakness, I am tethered to your mind. Feels like I've been waiting all my life. I had a dream about us wrapped around this feeling that I like. Can you believe how many times I have to lie to keep this off of my mind? I had a dream I wasn't bound by things that keep me tethered down. At least I'm feeling something, but I'm not here when you're not around. I had a dream about us. We were in the same place at the same time. Can you perceive the way I lie to myself at night to keep you off of my mind? I had a dream